Welcome to Stenographer's World Podcast. We are dedicated to communicating information that inspires your positive growth and change. We invite you to join and explore Stenographer's World and discover the many benefits it provides in helping you to further your aspirations and becoming the best you can be while traversing the different paths this wonderful and exciting career has in store for you. After the show today, make sure to check out stenographersworld.com for our CEUs, our speed building, and our live real-time writing lab libraries. So let's get started.
Stenographers World Radio is on the air with your host, real-time court reporter, author, and educator, Mr. Outfluence himself, Al Betts. Enjoy the show. Mr. Outfluence himself, Al Betts. Enjoy the show.
Welcome to Stenographers World Radio. Today is a special day, a day that we have looked forward to with great excitement. You know, it's not every day that we get to speak with a world champion. Let me set the stage for those who might be listening who are just learning about the court reporting profession. I was in the stadium in Baltimore the day two world championship NFL quarterbacks faced off against one another late in their careers and put on an awesome show. Johnny Unitas for the then Baltimore Colts, and of course Joe Namath of the New York Jets. I was also in the arena the day when world champion boxer Sugar Ray Leonard fought in Baltimore for the first time as a professional. I was in the arena several times to see NBA Hall of Fame center Wes Unseld play for the Washington Bullets. I was in the Kennedy Center Theater to watch the late, great Sammy Davis Jr. perform his famous song and dance routine to Mr. Bojangles for the last time. I also watched my mentor, Eleanor Ross, a Pittman shorthand pen writer, former manager of a boarding house in Maine, take her place as a reporter of debates in the United States Senate. All of those people had an intense desire to be the best, to never quit, to always push on. Today's guest on our show is one of those champions. Mark Kislingberry has placed first 11 times in national speed or real-time contests. He's in the Guinness World Record book as the fastest, most accurate writer of machine shorthand in the world. He owns the Mark Kislingberry Academy of Court Reporting. He's created a number of products to help court reporters and captioners perform at high levels. Mark has captioned live events to include the Super Bowl, the National Football League, the National Basketball Association, and NCAA games, hundreds of news broadcasts in the United States and Canada. There is so much to this man's life and career, and I'm sure we'll unveil more of it in the hour we have with him today. Probably his greatest accomplishment was when he appeared as Mr. July in the NCRA inaugural Men of Court Reporting 2006 calendar. What a guy. Mark, welcome to Stenographers World Radio.
Thank you, Al. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, we're excited to have you here, Mark. Let me tell the folks who are listening in how they can reach us today. A couple of things they need to know. If you are watching this for CEU credits, please type your name and email address in the question box that's below the slider. And also, if you want to ask a question of Mark, you want to join the show, the way you raise your hand is by hitting the star key and number 2. And if you're attending through the webcast, you can raise your hand with the raise hand tab that you'll see on your screen. So, Mark, how were you introduced to court reporting, and what was its appeal to you?
Well, I happened to be in, I believe, 11th or 12th grade in high school, and I was in a shorthand class, Greg Shorthand. I thought I was going to go to college and take great notes with shorthand. When one day a representative from the local court reporting school showed up, and she put on the table a beautiful, shiny, olive green machine with shiny black keys on the table. And that machine called out to me with its mystery. And she said, this is what court reporters use. And I'd never heard of a court reporter. And among other things, she told us they can write 225 words a minute, which was amazing to me because I was at 120 with the pen. And that you could sit in the courtroom and you could go to school for only 2 years, is what they said. And also that the local school was 95% female. So all of that was an attraction.
I understand. It's interesting, Mark. You and I kind of got into the field the same way because I was in an assembly or something in high school when someone came up and basically did the same thing. And but the attraction to me was my dad at that point, this is back in 1967, my dad was working in a steel mill making about $5,000 a year, and they told me that court reporters made $10,000 a year. I thought, wow, that's incredible. So that was the attraction for me. But that shiny machine was pretty good looking too.
Yes.
Mark, you have reported and or captioned a broad range of topics and speakers. And before we dive into a discussion of writing and speed building, can you please share with our audience just a couple of lessons that you learned from your experiences that will help them advance in their own careers as real-time reporters and or captioners?
Sure. I think one of the important things is to always prepare for whatever job is coming up, to prepare as much as you can, get there early, realize that we are professionals and we need to act professional. We're dealing with very highly educated, highly intelligent lawyers mostly, and we're working with them on a one-on-one basis. I believe we also need to keep in mind wherever we go as court reporters, we're representing all court reporters. You might say, no, I'm just representing myself, but in reality, you're representing, as a role model, all court reporters. So if you do something that makes some lawyers or judges angry at you, they may become lifelong enemies of court reporters. And we certainly don't want that. And that has happened before. Also, you need to know exactly what your job is. Sometimes they expect too much of us or ask us to do things that we're really not prepared to do. I'll just give an example. One time after a deposition, the plaintiff's lawyer, who was not my client when I was cleaning up, handed me the 1-inch thick file and said, I'm not sure I want to let this out to be copied. Can you go in our back room and photocopy it? And I told him that, well, we have people in our office that do that, and it's really not part of my job to do that. And I wasn't prepared to sit there for an hour using a strange copy machine and make the copies for this, and certainly not be paid for it. So I didn't do it. But the guy was quite unhappy with me. Also, I think we should try to keep a friendly and servant attitude despite what I just told you. And so that might mean in a deposition setting, offering to get drinks or coffee for the people present, or sometimes bringing cookies or donuts or something. Because we are there to serve them in a way. I mean, just as a court reporter, but I think it helps if we have a friendly and servant attitude. Also, I want to add that no matter how good you get, there's always a job that can humble you. And just yesterday, I was writing the radio program I do, and I got smashed about 3 times yesterday by too difficult material, and it was just humbling. One of them was they played a tape of a gentleman commenting on the San Bernardino terrorist attacks, and he went on to mention 2 or 3 Arabic terms that I had never heard that were pretty long, too. It wasn't that they were just short that I could finger spell. and back to back, and it was just, well, I blew that. I couldn't handle that in real time. And sometimes somebody can talk for 400 or 500 words a minute just for 2 seconds or 3 seconds, but it's enough to just cause you to drop and not feel good enough. So I hope everybody knows that no matter how good you get, you're never good enough to get everything. So we just have to do the best we can. And try to be perfect, but we'll never achieve it.
Absolutely. No, those are all great points, particularly about the aspect of being humble, because I had a similar thing happen to me, I guess about 3 months ago now. And, we had lawyers that came in from out of town, first deposition in a very technical case. I had no information about it. They never sent anything, couldn't get anything out of them, and just got killed. They were in there, and they were trying to get it done and get out of town and get back to where they came from. And they just weren't focused on the record and all. And so I can appreciate what you're saying. I was definitely humbled that day. So those things happen, absolutely. But those are great, Mark. Thank you. Those are great points. I appreciate you sharing those. Mark, I know in 2008 you published your compendium of writing short. That's called Magnum Steno, Write Short, Write Fast. Today we're going to be talking about those two topics, writing short and writing fast. So let's start by asking you, Mark, what do you mean by writing short, and what does writing short have to do with writing fast?
Yes. If I could just give a slight background to that before I answer it directly.
Sure.
And that was in the late 90s. I had been competing in speed contests and at the national level and generally placing fifth every year. And finally in 1999, a real-time contest came around. And back then, the real-time contest consisted of a 5-minute dictation of literary. And because it was a contest, they didn't make it quote-unquote fair like an RPR. They decided to challenge us. After all, this is a contest. It's not a test. And so it was very dense. And so when you get a dense literary at 200 words a minute, it's already difficult to write. So to ask people to real-time it is kind of really difficult. So as a result of the approximately 42 people who were good real-timers in their own right who took this contest, only 3 passed it, qualified to place.
Wow.
And when the smoke cleared, I had won. I was in first place, and I had made something like 9 errors, which was a 91%, I think, or something like that.
Right.
And I was amazed. And the next year it was a similar type of test, similar results, and I won again. After that, I asked myself a question. I said, Mark, are you just so gosh darn talented you need to just thank God that He gave you these gifts? And or is there something you're doing different than most other court reporters that allowed you to do this? And I discovered by asking people how they write, what they do, etc., that probably I was writing shorter than everyone in the whole room. And that gave me the huge advantage that allowed me to survive the dense material and have it translate pretty well. Once I realized that, I asked myself another question. I said, well, if you weren't even trying that hard to write short and you won the national championship, how good could you get if you really tried to write short? And that's when I buckled down and around the year 2000, 2001 and started aggressively shortening my writing. And within 3 years, I had a Guinness World Record at 360 words a minute. So that is the background for why I am now a big believer in writing short, because I know it was not my raw talent that lifted me this high. I know God gave me a lot of talent, which probably if I didn't write short, I might have been a speed contest placer at best. Never first, no way. But the fact that I write short has given me a powerful tool that has allowed me to get better and better. And so now it's done so much for me, I realize anyone who shortens their writing can get stronger and stronger and faster and faster. So now your actual question is, what do you mean by writing short? I mean by writing short, phrasing, briefing common words and phrases. Common words and phrases. That tends to mean things that come up at least once a week, once a month, especially things that come up every day. They should all be one stroke. And not just words, but phrases, many phrases, not just court reporter phrases such as at this time and have you had and scene of the accident, but phrases like when I went to thee and but he told me. So I've taken phrasing to a very high level, and I could be writing 280, 300, and my fingers moving at the same speed as a student writing 225. Even I could be
incredible.
I actually could be writing 360, and my fingers moving the same speed as one of today's students writing 225.
Yes, yeah, I hear you say that, Mark, doing all the phrasing of the common words and everything. And I try to do the same thing, too. I've always tried to, I continually try to shorten my writing, but my problem is trying to remember all of the, how do you remember it all? So how do you do it? I guess I'm asking, how do you do it? What's the, what's the philosophy or the, well, you know what I'm asking. I'm not getting it out very well, but go ahead.
Well, first let me say that I also believe that I was lucky in that I went to a school that taught us a short theory. Now, they didn't know they were teaching us a short theory. It just happened to be one. And I think the graduates of our school kept sending in briefs and phrases that they found handy. And so it just happened to be a school that just happened to be teaching a short theory. And so all of us were pretty strong writers when we graduated, possibly at 20% faster than other court reporters just based on our shorter writing alone. We didn't know that. We thought we just had a good school. But I now know that's what it was. And so we learned a shorter theory, and then when I was on the job and things slowed me down, my natural thing was to say, gosh, I have trouble keeping up every time they say that. I need a brief for that. I didn't say, I just need to get my fingers faster. That was harder to me. Easier was to make a brief for it. So I remember a lawyer, he kept saying as opposed to. And that was 4 strokes for me, even out of school. As opposed to, and it slowed me down. So I made up SP final T for that. And it made it easy after that. And it's just a matter of you keep hearing the same thing and you decide, I need to brief that. Now, to remember them, and if you're having trouble remembering them, you need to make a list, and the list will grow and grow, and you practice the list daily. And that's what I have done. A certain percentage of my briefs, I remember them, and a certain percentage, I don't remember them. I really have to work on them. And that just requires practice.
How many would you say are on your list that you practice on a regular basis, Mark?
Well, my list got so big it kind of got unwieldy. It probably had over 1,000 on it. Wow. And I think I need to shrink it down again to just get it down to about 100 again.
So how will you do that? How will you shrink it?
I put a value next to each one for how well I know it. Okay. And so the ones, what I'll do, I have a spreadsheet I made. It's called Words Generator. And I'm going to put a big number next to the ones that I want to come up more often, and a small number next to the ones that I'm pretty good at. And that's how I'll still have the same list, but I'll be able to cull it down that way. And when I press a certain button, it randomly gives me new ones to practice, and the ones with the big numbers come up more often.
Okay. Let's kind of work our way into writing short and writing fast. And I guess, Mark, we should first address our students. If we have students listening in today, and I hope we do have some. And so for those in the audience who are in a reporting school other than your academy, can they incorporate your book, Magnum Steno Beginning Theory, into their program?
Yes, they can. And you at first mentioned Magnum Steno Write Short, Write Fast, and now you mentioned Magnum Steno Beginning Theory. And I want to say that the first one was my first book, first great book on theory, entitled Magnum Steno anyway. And this next one is an improvement on it, but the second one, the Beginning Theory, is designed for schools and students. But court reporters use it as well because it has all the best ways I write short in it. And so it's excellent. So yes, students can use it, and I urge them to use it. The big question I get is, should I start my theory over? Should I relearn? And I almost always say no. Stick with what you have, but incorporate some of my principles into your writing and slowly evolve into a shorter writer with the theory you have.
Makes perfect sense, absolutely. And Mark, before we share with the audience a special opportunity that you're going to be making available to a lucky listener today, give us a very brief introduction to Magnum Steno Club.
Yes. Well, the Magnum Steno Club is an online site at magnumsteno.com that I designed to be a practice area for students and court reporters. It is geared first to court reporters, but it's good for students as well because every video in it contains a slowdown bar so that you can slow down every dictation to the speed that's appropriate for you. So even though most of my Q&As are around the 280 word a minute level, a student could slow that down to 80 or 100 or 120 just by pulling the speed bar down. And so everyone can benefit from that. I call it a club because, have you heard of a health club? What do you do at a health club? You pay $29.95 a month, and you go work out every day for a little while, and you become stronger and better. In the same way, my Magnum Steno Club is $29.95 a month, and you show up every day and you practice. And it has tons of material. I only know one person who claims to have listened to every video and practiced to every video, but otherwise you will never run out of material on this site.
Sounds like it. I'm interested, Mark, in that speed bar. Are you developing something that we can take to depositions and court trials that'll just slow them down, whether they know it or not? I mean, is that coming down the pike?
That would be nice, wouldn't it? But no, unfortunately, it only works for the videos.
Okay. Just checking, Mark. I mean, you got so many fabulous ideas. I thought maybe there was something coming here.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. Listen, the first person who emails me at albetts@albettsreporting.com will be the lucky winner of 1 free month access to Magnum Steno Club. That's a terrific gift, Mark, and thank you for making that offer. I think a savvy individual could probably build a really strong career foundation in a month spent with Mark Kislenberry. So we're going to announce the winner on the Stenographer's World website. So good luck. Send those emails. All right, Mark. Let's. Well, go ahead. Did you want to say something? I'm sorry, Mark.
Oh no. Go ahead.
Okay. But again, thank you for the gift. That's really terrific.
Oh, thank you.
You know, Mark, back in the days before CAT, I wanted to shorten my writing and reduce conflicts. So every couple of days, I would select things that I wanted to change or add to my writing, and I would write the new outlines on a piece of paper that I taped to my stenotype machine. We didn't even have Post-it notes then, so I had to use just tape. And through a process of visualization and practice, I made the changes. So I'm guessing, and you've talked a little bit about it already, but I'm guessing that your system of writing short is a little more sophisticated and more effective. Is there anything more that you want to share with us about that system of writing short?
Well, yes. It is not simply a system of 100,000, discrete things you have to memorize. I actually have a great deal of concepts where if you learn one concept, it gives you 50 phrases or 500 phrases. Or you learn one concept and it affects many, many words. Here's an example. People always have to come back for final G on a word like log, logging, raking, paging, etc. And so I invented something that could solve that problem so that we don't have to come back with the final G. A word like singing as well. And that is, you use DZ in the same stroke. So making would be MAIK DZ. Singing, SING DZ, etc. And so once I invented that, I sat down, spent a few hours putting all those in my dictionary. And now people that buy my book, my dictionary comes free with it, my briefs dictionary, and people can either merge that into theirs, telling it keep your own entry if there's a conflict, of course, and then they have the benefit of all my new briefs immediately, and they can try that DZ concept, and it will work immediately. So
that's great.
Lots
it's
of
great
things
to have
like that.
Go ahead. I was going to say, it's great to have creative minds like yours out there who use the entirety of that keyboard in unique and just really fascinating ways to make this difficult job a little bit easier for us all. I'm learning things already that I wasn't aware of. So this is just great.
Well, thank you.
Mark, you're very welcome. Let's see if we have anyone in our audience today who might have a question for you. And while Selena checks the Q&A board there to see whether we have any questions yet, let me ask you while she takes that moment to do that. I noticed in your bio a photo of you sitting atop a beautiful horse. Is horseback riding something that you enjoy with your family, or is that an opportunity for you alone to get your mind away from business for a while?
Unfortunately, none of the above, Al.
Oh, okay.
It happens to be I'm a wannabe horseman, and so I was sitting on another court reporter's horse on that day, and so my dream is to someday have a summer house somewhere and own my own horse and go riding off into the mountains. But right now, it's just a dream.
Okay. Well, dreams are good. Dreams are good. And, of course, you're actually putting yourself in the position so you know what it feels like, and you can remember that every day of your life until that dream actually comes through. Good for you, Mark. I love it.
Exactly.
I love it.
Thank you. Thank you.
There you go. Selena, can we ask whether you have any questions yet?
Yes. I just want to remind everyone, too, that if you have any questions, just raise your hand by using *2, or you can write in the question box below the screen, below the slide screen. Just type in your name and email address and your question. And I do have a question here. When you were writing your radio show, Mark, and couldn't get the terms they had said, what did you do? Did you use a parenthetical?
Okay, that's a good question. With that radio show, they want me to provide a transcript at the commercial break. Most of the commercial breaks, I send the segment that I just finished. So they are not actually watching it live. So fortunately, that gives me the opportunity to mark my mess-up spots, and during the 3 to 4 minute commercial break, I can run back there and using audio sync fix it, and sometimes even Google the term and see if I can even get the right spelling rather than guessing at it. So that is what I did. If someone was watching that, I would have tried to fingerspell a little bit of it and probably put a parenthetical that would say unintelligible.
Okay. And Mary Lou has her hand raised. It's been raised for a while, so I'm not sure if she still has a question, but I'm going to unmute you, Mary Lou. Mary Lou, are you there? Mary Lou?
I'm sorry, no, that was made an error before it started.
Oh, okay.
Hi, Mark.
Hello, Mary Lou.
Okay, let's see.
Hey, Mary Lou, are you still there?
Yes.
Mary Lou, are you a real-time writer?
Yes.
Have you studied any of Mark's materials?
I look up his Magnum Steno weekly so I can get his brief, yes.
Good for you. Good for you. So have you found that it's really benefited you in your work as a reporter?
Yes, I'm practicing on my English, and I do like a lot of the briefs. It's kind of what my theory used to be, too.
Al, I believe Mary Lou is an excellent Spanish captioner, if I have the correct Mary Lou.
Yes, thank you.
Oh, terrific.
That's
wow.
me.
Well, great. Thanks for joining us today, Mary Lou.
Sure.
Okay. All right, Selena, any other questions at this point, or should we?
I don't see any other questions. I do want to remind everyone real quick, I don't know if you announced this in the beginning of the show, that we do have a captioner, not a captioner, a cart provider, which is the same thing, at the bottom of the screen if you want to watch some captions and see how it works. I just wanted to throw that in there. But other than that, there's no other questions, so I will mute myself and you guys can continue.
Okay. All right. Mark, this is a good time to take a brief break for a message from Stenographer's World. So while I share this message with our friends, you can take these few moments to refresh yourself, and I'll be right back to you in about 30 seconds, okay?
Okay, sounds great.
All right, Mark. Do you want to be more marketable and increase your income? How, you ask? Simple. Write real time. It may seem scary at first, but now there's a way you can increase your confidence and ability to perform real time in front of others while sitting alone in the privacy and comfort of your home. That's exactly what Write Live lets you do. Write Live is a new live real-time writing lab available at stenographersworld.com. It lets you sit at your computer and write real time in front of your peers. As you write, your real time shows up on the screen for other members to see. It helps you develop your skills, your speed, your confidence, so you can command the much higher pay of real time. Plus, all Write Live sessions are recorded and they're available for replay to use anytime you like. Unlimited Write Live sessions are available for as little as $34 a month. Check it out at stenographersworld.com. Also, and this is an exciting Stenographers World member benefit, members can practice their real time by providing CART during any of our upcoming radio shows. Just write to info@stenographersworld.com and Selena will show you how. Today, as Selena mentioned earlier, Stenographers World member Lisa Zenker is providing CART services. Thank you, Lisa. You picked a good day to CART the show. Okay, let's get back to Mark Kislingberry, the founder and owner of the Mark Kislingberry Academy of Court Reporting in Houston, Texas, and also the author of Magnum Steno, Write Short, Write Fast. Mark, we've talked about writing short, so we have a little understanding about that, and soon we'll all have built a solid system of Magnum Steno. So how do we then build speed?
Well, at first it's important to notice that if you're writing shorter, you already are faster. Every brief that you learn that's common is going to increase your speed, even if your finger speed doesn't increase at all. So if you have two twins who can move their fingers at 3 strokes per second, which is kind of, dun, 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 and one learns a write-it-out theory, and the other learns my theory, the one that learned my theory will be writing about 30% faster. So if one of them is at 200, the other would be at 260. Or if one is at 100, the other would be at 130, just by using my system with no increase in finger speed. Mm-hmm. Now, how to increase finger speed, that brings me to describing what is it that makes up court reporting speed. And I was wondering if Selena could put up my slide now, if she got it. Selena, did you get my slide, and are we able to put it up on the website?
It should be up there right now. I just did it. Do you see it?
Oh, okay. It's just not on the cart page, right?
It's on the same event page. It's if you scroll up from her writing, from the real time, just scroll up, and you'll see at the top, magic chart.
Yeah, no, I don't see it, but that's okay as long as they can see it. That's fine.
I see it. You're on stenographersworld.com?
Yep. I'm seeing the cart, and I scroll up and I don't see it, but
you just see
maybe
your
I
picture?
should refresh.
Try hitting refresh. That might be it.
I don't even see my picture.
Oh.
Let's try again. Maybe it's because I didn't sign in.
Oh, well, no. This is opened up to the public today, so you should be able to see it. That's odd.
Okay. Well, I'll just move to it. It is strange. So the magic chart tells what involves court reporting speed. Court reporting speed is two things, not just one thing. The two things are, yes, how fast you move your fingers, but the second thing is how short you write. And those two things contribute equally to court reporting speed. So court reporters tend to think, oh no, it's just how fast my fingers are. But that's actually not true. It's like an automobile. There are actually two things that make an automobile accelerate fast, not one thing. One thing is the engine, but the second thing that is absolutely crucial is the weight of the automobile. And if the automobile is very heavy, it's going to accelerate much more slowly with the same engine than a car that is light. So if you look at the chart, the numbers on the left that are in color, the 2.0 through the 6.0, those are your finger speed, how many strokes per second you can write. And generally, I would say a professional court reporter generally starts around the 3.5 level for most people. In the green there, that means 3.5 strokes per second. And 4 strokes a second, it turns yellow, meaning it's starting to get hotter. It's heating up. That means it's fast. The fingers are moving fast. 4.5 also is getting close to speed contest level of finger speed. 5.0 is red, meaning very hot, and that is a very high speed. And in fact, in my life, I've never passed any test where I had to move my fingers faster than 5.0 on average. There are other people who have, but not me. I've only got my fingers to 5.0. I'm working on getting them up to, say, 5.5 would be great. Now, if you take your current finger speed, and then let's look at those black numbers at the top. Those numbers represent the strokes per 100 words you write. That means how dense is my theory? How much or how little do I brief? Well, the 140 column means you write practically everything out. I mean, to a fault, you write everything out. The 130 column means you write a lot out. You really are mostly a writer-outer. If you're in the 120, that happens to be, at least with Q&A, that happens to be about the average court reporter today. And I know because I've stood in front of some large groups of court reporters and I dictated to them for several 100-word takes and had them report to me how many strokes they wrote. And I wrote them all down in a spreadsheet and got the average, pretty close to 120. Now, I did a study of speed contest top 4 placers in the 70s and 80s. That would include people like Ed Varallo and Chuck Boyer and many other competitors, Peggy Antone. And I looked at their steno as it was shown in the magazine and did some calculations on how short they write in Q&A based on the steno that showed. And guess what? The average top placer in speed contests in the 70s and 80s, they averaged 110 strokes per 100 words. So that means that the excellent speed champions of yesteryear, 70s and 80s, wrote shorter by 10 words every 100 words. Basically, they wrote 10% shorter, practically, than today's court reporter. And that's because schools today are pushing write-it-out theories. And I think wrongly so. I think ignorantly so. So what's the difference between writing 120 strokes and 110? Well, let's look. Let's say that your finger speed is 4.0, the yellow, fairly fast fingers. If you're in the 120 column and you're moving your fingers pretty fast, 4.0, that equates to 200 words a minute. Only 200 words a minute. Whereas if you're in the 110 column, you're doing the same finger movements and you're getting 218 words a minute. Notice that the 120 people have to write 4.5 strokes per second to pass an RPR, 225. Whereas the people moving 110, the people in the 110 range can have their fingers be moving the same exact speed on the same take and be getting 245 words a minute, significantly faster, because they write shorter. What happens if you shorten your writing to 100 strokes per 100 words? That means you're averaging 1 stroke per word. Well, if we again go down to the 4.5, that's pretty darn fast fingers, that person is writing 270. And so look, they all have the same finger speed, yet one is writing 225 at that finger speed, and the other is writing 270. And their fingers are moving identically. Now, my fingers on Q&A material often get into the 80s. So if you look in the 80 column, at 4.5, I'm writing 338 words per minute. And indeed, I can do that. Currently, I can pass a 338, maybe about half of them, if you give it to me for a half a minute or for a minute. Right now, sitting here, I can probably do about 340 words a minute, pass it about half the time, because I'm writing 80 strokes per 100 words, and I'm writing at a fairly fast court reporter speed of 4.5. I sometimes can write in the 75 column, and if I manage to get a tape in the 75 column, I could write 360 on that same material. And it's all from writing short, notice. My fingers would be the same speed as yours at 4.5. So, but look at the students today. Students today are coming out of school writing in the 140 column and the 130 column. You don't know this, but I do, because I ask them. I say, how many strokes do you take to write this? And so, let's take a student in the 130 column. How fast do their fingers have to move to graduate? Well, if you go down the 130 column, you have to get to 5.0 before you pass 225. So basically, they have to write about 2.8 or 4.8 strokes per second, maybe, just to graduate. So here's what. Now, I've never passed 5.0. My fingers have gone faster than that, but I've never passed a take where I had to average 5.0 in the whole take. I never have. Some of those speed contest champions of yesteryear, they did. But that's because they had to, because they were in the 110 column. They had to go over 5.0 to get to 280. So they could do it. I'm not as talented as they are. even to this day, in terms of finger speed. So what is the school, in a sense, saying to a student when they teach them a theory that gets them in the 130 column? The school is saying, hey, students, come to our school. It's great. We have an excellent theory that's easy to learn, and you write by the syllable, and you can graduate from here. And all you've got to do is move your fingers at the same speed Mark made his world record on, or at approximately the same speed that the speed contest champions have to move their fingers. That's all you have to do to graduate from our school, is to move your fingers at the same speed that speed contest champions have to do it. That's what they're saying, and nobody realizes that. My theory teaches students to get easily into the 90 column, and if they really learn my theory well, the 80s column. For example, my first graduate, Melody Among, when she passed her first 200 word a minute take, she was in the 75 column. So look way over there, 75 column. She's the second one down that says 200. Her fingers were only moving 2.5 strokes per second to pass that 200 take. And by the time she got to 225, she was still in the 75 column, and so she did it by writing significantly slower than 3 strokes per second. So my first graduate graduated with very slow fingers and was getting it and doing great, whereas the students of today have to do the 130, 140 column, and it's bad. So I'll stop and let Al ask more questions.
Well, Mark, I'm interested to know how many Kislingberry, I'll call them Kislingberry reporters, are out there right now, people that have gone through your program and write your system, so to speak.
My school started 4 years ago, and my first class had 4 students in it, and my next class had 2 students in it. My next class had 10 students in it. So keep in mind we've had small numbers.
Sure.
Our school so far has 8 graduates, but only 4 of them learned my theory from the beginning, and the other 4 either came from another school and then either worked my theory completely in or just partially into what they were doing. So currently there are 8 people that went to this school that are out working right now.
And I assume you followed up with them, and I'm interested to know their progress as professional reporters graduating your school. Are they instant real-time writers? I mean, obviously they need to have some life experience to complete the package,
yes.
But what are you seeing in terms of results in that way?
Well, my first graduate, who graduated in I think it was 2012 August, after being here a year and 5 months, that's Melody. She court reported, taking a ton of work for about the first year or a little more, and then she moved into captioning, and she's currently writing a very fast radio show, kind of like I'm doing, and she's just doing spectacularly. So she's actually moved beyond freelancing into captioning and instant transcripts. The other 3 who learned my theory have all been reporting for a year or less, and they are doing very well, and each of them has a parent who is a court reporter as well. And
well,
they've all passed RPR or CSR in their respective states, and they're all working and doing well. Now let me throw this in, Al. There are actually a few dozen people that have been working for up to 10 years who learned my theory, but not at my school. There's a school in Corpus Christi, Texas, that's been teaching my theory since 2005, and they have dozens of graduates. And the ones I hear about are just doing well, and they learn real time fairly quickly. My students get into real time within a year or 2 of when they graduate. And also, you may have heard of the Fraser family in California. Well, Tammy Fraser is an official, and she loved my theory, so she taught herself a bunch of it. Then she taught one of her sons my theory. After teaching him my theory, she sent him to school. He got out of school very quickly, and he's already placing in real-time contests and speed contests. And he had a classmate who also switched to my theory, and she too, same story. So my graduates are doing very well. Court reporting is much easier to them than it is for write-it-out people.
Yeah, I would imagine. I mean, that's the proof's in the pudding, Mark. Obviously, you're turning out people that are being productive very quickly and moving into real time really pretty quickly.
Yes.
So that's very exciting. I mean, congratulations. Obviously, you're doing a lot of things right here.
Let me throw in one more thing, Al. One more thing.
Sir.
That is my first 4 graduates who learned my theory first. Their average graduation rate is 1 year and 10 months.
Wow. That's fabulous. That's just fabulous. So whoever's going to win this 1 month free membership in the club is has something of extreme value. I mean, I just can't even imagine. This is great. I'm interested, Mark. I'm sure you've given presentations on real time to either law firms or bar associations or whatever. Am I right about that?
Oh, gee, if I have, it's been once.
Oh, no kidding. Oh, wow.
Yeah. I tend to teach reporters rather than lawyers.
Yeah, I was wondering, because, we all get into situations in real time where the lawyers just, they don't care what we do. I shouldn't say they don't care, but they don't take the time to really understand what we do and what we need. And I was wondering if you've had any interaction with regard to those kinds of issues, talking to, maybe it's your own clients, when you start to work for them. I mean, do you educate them a little bit? And if so, how do you do it?
Generally, clients I've worked with have just been easy to work with, and I've been able to get there early and prepare. And so I haven't had to educate too many of them in my past, okay. But I agree with you that it needs to be done and that lawyers need to continually to know what makes a good record just basically without real time, as well as what makes a good record with real time. I agree. Absolutely. That that's an issue.
Yeah, because the one question I have for you is, will the combination of high-speed practice and writing short help someone to overcome the fear and the anxiety that hold so many real-time prospects back?
Yes, it certainly will, and I'm glad you mentioned high-speed practice because I actually hadn't had a chance to squeeze it in. So I'll just say for 30 seconds here that
sure.
My method for getting fingers faster is to practice at high speed. And on my website, it actually takes 5 to 6 videos of 6 minutes each to explain my high-speed practice method. So it's not just some simple thing, just practice higher speed, you'll be fine. There are some details you need to know on how to do that. But high-speed practice I think it's the most efficient way to make yourself faster. So I'm glad you mentioned that. Yes, if you write short and you also are able to make your fingers move faster, you will be a much more competent writer and you'll feel much more confident. I tremble to think if I wrote everything out and I have to provide real time in front of fast talkers, I would be afraid too. It's so hard to write. And you know what? There are those 1 in 1,000, 1 in 10,000 court reporters who are so good that they write everything out and do a good job on real time. And I am certain I'm not one of those. And I couldn't be.
Well,
I couldn't be.
Mark, they can probably do that in their 20s and through their 30s, but when they start getting up there after 30 or into their early 40s, I don't think they're going to be able to do it.
You might be right, yes.
Yes, the world is one for the youth, that's for sure. Selena, do we have any other?
Let me throw something in here, though, Al.
Yes, sir.
and that is that if you write short, you can write fast and accurately into old age. And
I totally agree with that. Yeah.
That was proven by Ed Varallo, who, in 2006, he came back to try another speed contest. And he writes short, by the way. I don't think he writes as short as me, but he writes shorter than most other reporters. And he says short writing is what has helped him. He was in the 2006 speed contest, and so was I. And Ed got first, and I got second. And he was 60 years old in 2006. 60 years old. And and Ed has placed up to third and second place numerous times in real-time contests, including in his 50s and 60s. So I just wanted to throw that in.
No, you guys are exceptional. You're special. Now you take an old piker like me. I will admit to being 66 years old. I'm still writing real time. I don't write as much as I used to, but I can still do it. And it's partly because I do try and write a short system. When I heard you start to talk about that many years ago, I really got more focused in on it. So everything you're saying, Mark, I'm buying into totally.
Thank you.
And you're absolutely on the mark. Selena,
do
you have any other?
By the way, I must congratulate you, Al, for being 66 years old, and I'm 52, so I'm not far behind you. For working on real time and excelling in real time, because many people in their 40s, 50s, and 60s don't make the change. They're afraid to. They're unwilling to change, and yet you did, and you continue to. And I just applaud you for that.
Thank you, Mark. I appreciate it. Selena, before we close things out today, are there any other questions?
Yes, there are. I have one, and there's another one as well. Our last speaker, and plus I've heard other people say this too, writing real time, a lot of people like to write everything out because if they have briefs, sometimes the briefs come up untranslated or something, you know what I'm saying, when they're writing another word. So they're scared to write real time if they have a lot of briefs. But your theory, Mark, you have a pattern. You don't really have you don't do briefs per se, just make brief stuff. Yours is more like a pattern, like your phrases, it's a pattern. So you're not making up briefs on the fly, so you ingrain that in your mind, so that's just your way of writing. Am I explaining that right? Am I saying that right?
I do understand what you're saying, and my writing certainly does have patterns, but I would say that the person who is afraid, they're afraid for the wrong reason, and it's not because they don't have my patterns. For one thing, to say that I'm worried that if I write a brief and misstroke it, it will be a garbage, that also happens just as much with a write-it-out person. Because the write-it-out person writing something in 3 strokes, if you simply misstroke the middle stroke of it, the whole thing is garbage, and a whole lot of garbage on top of that. So it's really the same thing. If you're going to do a misstroke, it's going to be a mess either way. Okay, that's number one. Number two, a lot of the reason people were afraid to make briefs, for example, let's say I write KUT for can you tell. And so I have to put an asterisk for cut. Well, if I think what you're saying is, let me give another example. How about the phrase she would? I write SHELD. Well, if somebody writes she would that way, and they're writing real time, and the name Sheldon comes up, and they want to write Sheld followed by ON. So they write it. Well, if they didn't have Sheldon in their dictionary, it would come out she would on. And so they're afraid of that kind of thing. But I think the answer to that is to have a preview area in your software so that you can see what you're writing before it goes out to the viewer, number one. You learn to keep your eyes on that. And if a name like Sheldon comes up and you don't have it in your dictionary, while you do write she would, you simply have to revert to finger spelling. So as long as you know what your dictionary can do, you keep an eye on the output, and are able to finger spell, you can avoid problems that way, even if you do write things out or use a ton of briefs.
Mark, just give me 1 second. Selena, we're at the 1 hour mark. Is it okay if we go over a little bit, or do we need to?
I'm fine with going over if you guys are fine with it. There is one more question that someone wrote in.
I'm perfectly fine.
Great. Go ahead, Selena.
Question? Okay, it's from Kathy. I think you've answered part of it, but when I speak to people about becoming a court reporter, how long does the average student take to get out of school? What should I tell them is the amount of time it will take? I'm wondering if you could maybe give both the average for another school, a traditional school, and yours.
Yeah, that's a very dicey question, because if they're going to a really write-it-out school versus a moderately write-it-out versus my school, the answer is going to be completely different. If you're in a very write-it-out school, you may never graduate. I hate to say it, but you have to get your fingers up to the speed of the speed contest champions to graduate. And who has that ability? Only a few people. So if you go to a school where they teach you some briefs and some moderate, then I would say, if you have the ability, and if you're a fairly young person, then 2 to 3 years if you work hard. You have to work hard, and you need to make school a full-time thing. And if you're going to Mark school, you have a better chance. But again, I emphasize go to school full-time, work really hard, and the younger you are, the better. I try to discourage people in their 40s and 50s from starting court reporting school because studies have shown the brain's ability to learn high-level skills and new languages diminishes the older we get. But I say, hey, if you want to go and you feel God calling you, don't let me stop you. I just want to warn you, it's going to be much harder for you. And I do that out of love for my neighbor, not because I want to be mean or discriminate. It's because I want to save them a great deal of pain. Because although I do not have any statistics for this, I would bet that the number of 50-year-olds and above who start court reporting school and actually graduate and become a court reporting student, I would bet money it's less than 1% make it. So I would like to save those 99% a lot of heartache.
Right. Al, there's no more questions on this side.
Okay. All right. Mark, I want to thank you for sharing with us today, and thank you for leading us into the future boldly and with confidence. Magnum Steno, Write Short, Write Fast is the book for real-time advancement, and Magnum Steno, Beginning Theory is the place to start. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Al and Selena, for having me on.
You're very welcome. Join us next on Saturday, January the 9th, when past NCRA President Tom Runfola will be our guest. Tom's a successful court reporter, owns a reporting business, is the owner of a preschool in Ohio that has nothing to do with court reporting, obviously. He is a business consultant, and he's also a radio talk show host on the Salem Network. This is Al Betts signing off for Stenographer's World. Happy holidays, all.